Hello everyone out there on YouTube. Once again, this is Lamin Sani of LSWAT, and this is the 5th episode of this semi-advanced JavaScript tips. And continuing from our last video tutorial, which is scopes, we'll do a second part of that scopes because I didn't finish up everything that I want to show you guys. So this is the same code that we had from the last video tutorial, and let's just remove everything that we have here. Okay, so just as a note, if you want to create scopes in JavaScript, if you want to limit a variable within a starting curly brace and an ending curly brace, whether it's a function or it's an if statement or it's a while or it's a for loop, the only way you can limit the scope of a variable within two brackets is to create a function. Let me show you what I mean by that. So let's say you have a variable called var. My variable equals to. Let's just spice things up a little bit. Let's say awesome value. Okay, so and you have an if statement here. And let's say if wow, it's killing me. Okay, let's just create another value called variable 2. Sorry, I just missed out. variable 2 equals to awesome value. Okay, so inside this if statement, if you say variable, why do I keep spelling variable wrong? Variable 2 dot length, or actually variable 2 equal to awesome value. And now inside this if statement here, there is nothing like scope. And basically what I mean by that is if you say var variable 3 equal to other value 3, so you might expect that because you have an if statement here and you haven't used any of these two variables, you haven't defined them in here for obvious reasons like hoisting. So, but you've created a totally new variable called variable 3. In other programming languages, when you do an if statement and you declare a variable and define it inside an if statement, it only exists within that if statement. But in JavaScript, it doesn't. And I'll show you that it doesn't. So when we do a console.log, when we log variable 3 out, we will get the value variable 3 even outside here. So I'll show you quickly what that means. Let's just hope that this comes to true. So if variable 2 equals to other awesome value, that is true. Let's let me just quickly open scope 2. So in Chrome Developer Tools, you see in console it says other value 3. So if this is just to prove that if blocks do not create scope. So let's do the same for while variable 2 is equal to this. While statements as well in other programming languages, they do create scope, but in JavaScript they don't. So let's say other value 4. Let's just log this out. Variable 4. When we log this out, even though we created this within this while loop, it will still exist outside of it. So refresh. Actually, what's happening? Oh, we kind of went inside an infinite loop, guys. It's one mistake. I have to rectify this. Just realize that the loop will never finish. So let me just create a, let me just make sure that this is not, so sorry, variable 2, let's make sure that it exits the loop. So while a variable 2 equals to this, let's change the value of variable 2 to something like awesome value 2. So now the loop will exist because it's not true anymore. But outside that, variable 4, which we created inside this while loop, will exist outside of it, which is a bit intriguing or surprising, but that's what happens in JavaScript. A lot of unexpected things that you don't expect you don't encounter in other language. So as you can see, other value 4 exists even outside of that loop. Okay, so now let's just do the one iteration, which is the for loop. So let's say I from 0 to I is less than 6, I plus plus, and let's say variable 2 equals to I. What happens here? Okay, let's say var variable 5 equals to awesome value 5. So as usual, you might think this will just happen occur or just be scoped inside here, but no, that's not what happens. It still exists outside. So variable 5, sorry, this was supposed to be 5 because we don't want to overwrite that one. So variable 5 will also exist. So if I log that out, very awesome value 5, as you can see. So how do we make sure that a variable has a scope? If you watch the last tutorial, you'll see that the only way you can create scope in a variable is to use a function. So let's just create a function and then call the function after we've created it. So let's say var variable 6 equals to awesome value 6. So now remember, when we created all these variables inside this if statement, while and for, they all existed outside. But now let's watch what happens when we try to log a variable which was created inside a function. The variable is variable 6, so we should see an error here. So when we refresh, we say uncaught reference, variable 6 is not defined. And the reason for that is, I'm sure you might have guessed if you watched the last video, is that functions create scopes of their variable. So the only way you can create scopes in JavaScript is inside a function. Okay, so that wraps up this tutorial series on scopes. There's a lot more on scopes, and I don't think it's a good fit for this series. It's a little bit advanced. They're called closures, and I'll try to create another tutorial series to cover all that, and there's a lot more goodies coming into that. But for this series, we'll wrap it up like this. And as usual, if you have any questions, I'm sure some of you might, but if you don't, it's even better because that means you've understood it. But in any case that you don't understand anything, feel free to contact me. I'll respond as quickly as I can. And thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate all the views that I'm getting, and people seem to be appreciating these tutorials. And if you have any video tutorials that you think you need help with, or you want to show you want someone else to understand, please send me emails at lswebapps@gmail.com, and I'll try to see if I can cover them in the spare time that I have. Okay, so that's it. Please rate and comment and subscribe if you really like this or if it was helpful, and I hope to see you in another series that I'll be doing soon. Thanks for watching, guys. That's it all for this series. Bye.